All right, sound is on. Screen is on. How's everyone doing today? We're going to be doing a little bit of making a placeable object for tonight's class, and this time around it's going to be interesting because I did not rehearse this. I'm going to show you what I go through. I'm sure we're going to run into some errors that we'll have to fix as we're doing it as we go along, but I'll show you exactly how I decide what I'm going to make placeable and where I'm going to get it and everything. So I'm going to go into, I'm not even going to use the map class map for this today. I'm going to use my good old Pleasant Valley version 2 map and load that up. What I'm going to try to do today, and we won't finish it, but we're going to take the Fert Master or the Seed Master, I think I'll start with the Fertilizer Master, out of the map and make it into a placeable object. We're going to have to convert it from the whatchamacallit script, the fermenting silo script, to a UPK mod as well. So it's going to be quite a challenge, and you will see how I go about doing all this fun stuff as we get started. First thing we're going to do is export one of these machines over here. And we do that by finding the master group for the Fertilizer Master, which is right here. And I'm going to export that to a new file folder, because this is what we're going to make into a placeable. Export selection with files. Go to my desktop. I'm going to create a new folder and name it Fert Master. That works. And let's see, Fert Master is there, and we're just going to export our Fert Master i3D. And we'll minimize that for now. If we go to our desktop, we'll see we have a Fert Master with all the files that are needed, or most of the files that are needed anyway. I'm going to open that up real quick. And it is off center, so I'm going to highlight the whole group and bring it right to the middle. It needs to be in the middle for your placeable object. So our X, Y, and Z go to 0. And we are here with a Fert Master that we want to make placeable. Right now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to save this exactly where it is, and we're going to get the necessary files in here to make it a placeable mod. We'll close that down. The necessary files are, you need a mod description file, and you need your Fert Master XML file. Now, what I like to do, rather than trying to memorize everything that is needed, is I will go to a mod that is a placeable that's going to be something similar. Let's see what we have here. Oh, let's take the Animal Barns mod, because that'll be pretty easy. And I'm going to grab a couple files and edit them to what we need. What we're going to need is your brand file, which is your logo. You can use any logo you have created. It is basically a simple small image that goes under the name. It's a 256 by 64 image, and mine's brand.dagnet, so that's the image we're going to grab. Put that into the other folder. We're also going to need a store file. And we'll take this one here. Well, let's see. That's the barn picture, but we're going to need to create a picture of our mod. So let's put that down in here. And actually, what I'll do, one quick easy way to create your picture is what I like to do is highlight your group. I'll take it and I'll translate the Y to like 100 so I don't get the grid in it. You got just the gray background. Grab a screenshot, and then we should be able to go into our screenshots folder. Where is my screenshots? Are in Dropbox. And we'll edit that out by rectangle select. Try to make it as square as possible. I'm not gonna get too crazy with this, but we need to resize it. And I like to resize it to 256 by 256 for this. Give us a quick picture. Let's go over to our store file, and we'll edit that one as well, and we'll just select all, edit, copy that into our picture, and file, save it. Make sure you save it as your store DDS. So we have an image for the Furtmaster placeable icon, placeable mod. That part is done. Next thing, we're going to need an XML file. I'll just grab the chicken barn one. We're going to edit the crap out of it, but let's just put an XML file down here, and we'll call it Furtmaster XML. And you need the mod description file as well, which we'll grab it right here. Whoops, don't want to open that one yet. We'll copy our mod description file. So we have those all there. Now we're going to get into the fun part of editing the files. First thing, the mod description file. This is going to have the 3 mods for the animal barns. So author's Dajnet, you can put your own name. Version 1.0 works for me. We're going to call this Furtmaster. And I'm not even going to worry about the German translation, so we can get through this. We'll just type Furtmaster again. And then we have a description, and we're going to call it a UPK Furtmaster. That sounds good. And one more time. We already have the store icon, store DDS. We've already created that, so that's good. Go right down. We're not going to register this at this point. We are going to leave it out. We'll come back to that. Actually, why don't we just do the old... Can we do that? Oh, I can't even remember how to do it. There we go. And then we'll leave that line in there, so if we need to come back and register it later, which eventually we will, we have it. Now, under the store items section, I have 3 store items. The cow barn, and we only need to edit one, so I'm going to get rid of the other 2 down here completely. Here, we'll get one out of there, and then number 3, and we want to leave that last store items tag. So you can have multiples store items. You just have to have the store items, and then the next tag, each of your store items would go inside these tags. Here we have to name it our UPK Furtmaster. And again, we'll just keep going down. Change our description. And the next part is the German translation, which I'm not translating. Down a little further, we have the cost. You can see our image is going to bring in the store, and the brand is labeled to the brand underscore DAGNet, which you have to have it labeled for your brand file, whatever that name is. That's what you want there. So that's all good. And I'm going to make this price a little bit lower. We'll make it 75,000. And it's a species of a placeable, which is already there because we took it right out of a placeable. And the category it's going to go under is placeables. Brand, my brand name, DAGNet Mods. We'll call it, leave that. But we need to point to the new XML file we're going to have, which is fertmaster.xml. Same way as we have it spelt right there, all lowercase. Now the function is right after the C data, in between those little lines, we can write a brief description of what it actually does. So we're going to convert manure, liquid manure, whoops, sorry about the terrible spelling, back up, and compost to fertilizer. And we're going to highlight that line right there. Do the same thing for the German version for now. That part is done. As far as the 110N section, or the L10, yep, it's L10. The L10 section. Eventually, we're going to need to put in a whole bunch of products here, so I'm just going to leave one line again, whoops, that I can refer to later on. And we'll just cross it out for now. We're just right now want to get a mod that works, and that is our pretty much simple, using all the information except for right here I didn't put the UPK Fertmaster. We're good there. And thanks for the follow, Winky29. Apparently follow alerts are being a little bit slow today. Alright, so if all works well, we have the mod description file correct. We're going to leave that one behind. And under the Fertmaster XML, we have to point to the placeable type is actually going to be called for now placeable, because we don't have to register a placeable. The file name that we need for the i3D is the fertmaster.i3d, so we're going to just change that right here. And the next part is the placement. The placement size is usually set so that it's a square area where you can not actually put other objects. Now, I don't mind when I'm placing overlapping objects. You know, sometimes I want to get things butted right up against each other, so I usually just turn these right down to 0.1. This will allow you to actually overlap, but if you didn't want to overlap, you're going to have to go in and find your size of your actual object. But for me, those four will allow you to get things put really close together. If you want a large space around it, you can set your X, Y, and Z dimensions so that things can't be, or your X and Z dimensions, so things can't be put on top of it at all. The random rotation actually brings the object in at a random rotation every time you click it, which is great for placing trees, but not so good when you're placing a placeable barn or a fertilizer master, for instance. And the user, so we have that set to false, all lowercase, and the use manual rotation is set to true, and that allows us to actually use our keys and turn it ourselves. So we're going to save that file, and I'm going to zip all these up in a zip file. And notice the zip file name will come up is the same, well, the way I do it anyway, with this WinRAR. It comes up with the same name as the folder I put it in. And I keep the zip version in there. It's just the way I've learned to do things, so I have the other files, but my zip file's right there. And I'm going to drop that in my work in progress folder here. I had another one there that I was testing a couple things out, trying to get the particle animations, but that's going to be another lesson. We're not going to get that far tonight. But we have the FertMaster in there. Actually, without the capital F, so let's delete that and paste it again. Alright, FertMaster is there. Let's boot up my work in progress map and see if we have a fertilizer master. Everything's good there. Real quick, see what we have. We should have a placeable object. Now, if you were just doing a barn or something, this is mostly what you need to know. There is a couple things I can show you at some point where getting it flush with the ground and stuff, a little bit of extra work to do. Putting a slab underneath it, which the FertMaster already has. It has a slab, so you should be able to place this on a hill, and I'll show you why that is if we have a fertilizer master when we load up. Now, it's going to probably have tons of errors because there's lots of things we need to do to this. But right now I'm just looking to get this in-game somewhere where I can check it out, and then we're going to UPK it to death. Because I could not find a version of the fermenting silo script that actually worked for 2015 on a placeable object. So if I'm good to go, we go to our mods under placeables, and we have our UPK FertMaster. And maintenance is 0. You can add a maintenance cost. Usage converts manure, liquid manure, compost to fertilizer. We'll buy one of these, and I don't see it, so we have an issue. And let's see, attempt to place enhanced place Lua. Well, that's gonna scroll like crazy, so let's quit this real quick and find out where we went wrong. Like I said, we're gonna come up with a few things here as we go. And it's probably just a simple, let me get my log text. Always refer to your log whenever you have your errors. It'll tell you where you went wrong. Invalid placeable type FertMaster dot placeable. Alright, so let's go back to my FertMaster folder. And we have FertMaster there, that's good. I always get this. And it's probably maybe it was a lowercase FertMaster.i3d looks good. Troubleshooting. Let me go real quick and see what the heck a normal placeable mod, which I have one here. Make sure I have it registering correctly. And there is a ramp somewhere. Let's see, where are we? Our mod description for a placeable, basic placeable is placeable ramp. We're good there. And then the ramp XML has it as a lowercase p, and that probably was the problem. So let's see if that's all it was. Again, zip it back up. Yeah, we'll use the best compression. Oops, I did a RAR file. You didn't see that. Nobody saw that. and overwrite the other one, and hopefully it'll work. Sometimes it's just as simple as a capital letter. Alright, one more time. Let's see what happens. Look at all the people in the room already today. Later on, we will be doing the normal update at 9 o'clock, which will go through a few things, very minor stuff in version 2 right now. We do have some new files to give out as well, and we'll get to that at 9 o'clock. Some new stuff for everybody if you stick around. As well as another look at PV Rivers with a few more things added in. It's been a busy day for me. Alright, let's see if I can buy a placeable one right now. There you go. All it was, one little capital letter, and we messed it up. So make sure placeable is spelt with a lowercase p. And I'm going to bring it up to one of the farms so I don't have to drive to actually take a look at it. We'll put it right here. And we have a placeable fertilizer master machine, which has absolutely no function yet because we have to make it into a UPK mod because the other script won't work. So this is going to be the fun part. But you can see you made a placeable. Very simple if you're going to do a barn or anything like that. Now you can make it so it's up a little bit higher. I'll show you that as well. We'll jump out of here. We know the placeable's working. We can buy it. We'll get into your foundation real quick. We'll open up, let's see, where are we? FertMaster i3D. Basically, wherever your main folder in your placeable item is, when that's set at 0, that's where your object falls. If you wanted to raise up the object out of the ground a little bit, you can actually raise the whole thing up, and that's where the whole object will get placed. So if I can go up like that. If you want to have a larger foundation underneath that, you can move the foundation or the object within the folder itself. This is wherever that's at is where it's going to be. If I wanted to push it underground, I have to go down one level, and then I can actually alter this so it can go underground, or I can bring it up higher. That's where the slab comes in. The thicker you make this slab, the more of a, which is simple as going in, and if I wanted to scale this, say, to 1.5, I have a thicker slab there, so it can go on a more of a hill. You can also put in a, if you can find one, another type of slab. You can change it out, whatever you want to do. But this folder here, set at 0, should place it flush with the ground. If you noticed, I was on a little bit of an angle, so I just raised it up just a tiny bit above. Oh, actually, I'm still at 0. There we go. I didn't reset it back to where it was after my screenshot, which I did not save. So if you want to bring it up just a little bit higher, just bring your Y translation up, and it'll show it a little bit higher up off the ground than where it was, but you'll still see the slab. If you want to extend your slab, just go to the slab below, and then you can raise and lower that separately. We'll save that one more time. Now this is where we're going to get into the fun part of creating this into a UPK, which I have not done yet. So there's a lot of things that we need to look at. And the first thing is, and I'm going to bring up a sample right next to it. We'll bring up those animal barns so you can see all the fun stuff, and also we're going to steal some triggers out of them too. Let's go to, anyone will work. Let's go to the cow barn. And we'll try to do this split screen here. And what we're really going to be focusing on right now is all this information right here. And we need to get that over into, we can actually close the map down for now because we don't need that running. If we do, we'll go back to it. And I always like to bring up so I don't forget anything. There's so many things that you can have with these crazy things that it can get very confusing. So here we are in our user attributes for the FERT master, very top folder. You could see it has all the user attributes for the fermenting silo script, which we're not using. So I'm going to delete all of these except for, I'll leave the on create so I don't have to create it again.
Dock is connected.
And we're going to have to add in some of these. So we're looking over here, and first one I'm going to add in is the UPK version.
Connected.
These have to be spelled exactly the way they are, case-wise. The version is a string, and you just click add, and then you're going to, always, the latest version that actually works for the UPK is 0.9.8, and that's the one that we have the map. So 0.9.8 tells it what version we're using. Alright, now the next line is capacities. Now really quickly, if you're not familiar with the UPK, you can do a exclamation point UPK, all lowercase, and it will bring up the UPK website. And one thing I will show you real quick on my desktop, which is my Bible, is the documentation. In the documentation folder, you have all the stuff. It's documentation for 9.9, so some things aren't working, but it is basically all the triggers listed, tells you where to find all the information, and I actually like to look at it right here. So your base, for instance, is what we're setting up now, and it tells you all your base functions. And that would be in section number 4.1. So we would scroll down. But you can use this, refer to it, see all the different functions you can do, tells you the exact spellings, tells you what type of field it needs to be. We need the mod name string, but we're doing the UPK version. It tells it needs to be a string. Next we got to add the mod name and the on create, which is script callback. Everything's in here, and it's actually mostly, you might need to Google Translate the text, but most of the stuff is easy enough to figure out once you get the hang of it. But you can translate the text to see exactly what we're talking about. But that is right on his site. So let's get back over here, and we'll get as far as we can on this today, and if it takes us a little longer, we'll finish it up on Tuesday. Next we have capacities. Capacities are everything that this is going to hold. So I know from doing this many times that capacities is always a string as well. Capacities is also going to have no spaces, but you have the capacity of the item followed by the item that it actually is, and it has to be spelled correctly as it is in your map. So we know that this is going to hold fertilizer, obviously, so we'll make it hold 200,000 fertilizer, and it has to also take the products. We're doing manure, liquid manure, or solid manure. Now this is interesting because I never even gave this a thought. Because it actually needs to convert that to another product on this with the UPK, so it's all one product. So we're going to think about how we want to do this. Well, first we'll just set it up for basic. We'll do it so it holds 50,000 manure and 50,000 liquid manure and 50,000 compost. And spell it right or you're going to have issues. There. Found the right key. Alright, so make sure you have all those in there. Now, I chose this mod because it has so many features that we're going to get to use, and some that we won't be able to, but we've got all the capacities in. Make sure there's not even a space after all that, or it will cause this not to work. Initial fill levels, we're going to skip that because we don't need to have, but if you wanted to start it off filled with fertilizer, you could put 200,000 fertilizer as an initial fill level. What we do need is the mod name, and it's all lowercase mod name, and it's a string. We'll add that in. And we need the mod name exactly as our folder, so it's FertMaster. Whatever the zip file is, with a capital T, capital F, FertMaster. That's what our mod name is. Don't need the .zip, but you need the part before it, whatever the mod name is. Alright, now the onCreate is this Universal Process Kit onCreate. I'm going to highlight it so I have all the proper capitals and everything. Now the onCreate is a script callback. We'll just put that right in there. You definitely need that. And the storage is simple STORE. Any product that's going to be stored in this needs to have storage. So we're going to click Add Store as a string. Did I add it as a string? Let's do that again just in case I didn't. I wasn't paying attention. Store, string, add, and just list out the products again. Fertilizer, manure, liquid manure, which has a capital M in the middle of it, and compost. And I am going to leave that as is. Alright. Those are our 4 products. Now, next thing we need to do is I'm going to actually create a let's see. Now we'll leave it the way it is for now. Alright, so that is the very first part that you need for your fertilizer. That tells everything about the mod, where it is. Now we got to go down through here and find each of the parts that actually have a function. And we're not going to have a rotating pipe, but what we're looking for, the interact trigger on our map, it would be your display trigger basically. So when you walk up there, you're going to need to have a display trigger to show what's inside the little thing. So all my little barns have. That's the fill trigger. Let me grab some triggers here. We're going to need a display trigger, a tip trigger for dumping, and a fill trigger for filling up. So we're going to grab those 3. I'm going to export those right into my FertMaster folder as triggers. It's the easiest way to do it. There are no graphic files. So here we are. And what I'm going to do is go back over, grab my triggers, and import all 3 of them. They'll all appear down here in the bottom. What we're going to do first is we got to change the triggers to the UPK functions. So we already know that the interact trigger needs to be replaced. So we replace that one with the display trigger. It's basically gonna give us the display, and we're gonna have to reposition it. Wherever somebody walks in this box is where it's going to give the display of what's inside.
Jeff disconnected.
And it doesn't need to be a big box, especially for the placeable, but we'll put that right there. Interesting thing about display triggers with the UPK kit is you have so many additional options. And here you can see, because we imported it, I have it already set up. You can allow motorized or allow a walker, and that means if somebody drives real close, they can see it if they're in a motorized vehicle, or if they get out, they can see it as well on foot. Now, those are simply Boolean type, gives you the checkbox, and you can turn them on and off with the mod. Next one is your display fill types. And it's spelled exactly the way it is there, lowercase d, capital F, capital T. And they're displayed actually in order. So it's your choice if you want to have the manure, liquid manure, solid manure, and then the fertilizer. But I'm going to put fertilizer on top, followed by manure, liquid manure, and the compost. So it has all three. If you wanted to show it only if there's products in it, you could click that box, but I like to have it even if there's a 0, so there we go. And the show fill level basically is going to show you how full it is and the percentage. And this is called the display trigger. So you have the type, and every trigger that we're going to make has a type. So this is already set to display trigger, all lowercase. That one is done. Now we have the fun indicator. Let's see what we have. And a lot of this is by moving around. You will see this is your indicator for manure in. This one actually is your fertilizer. Alright, so we need to remove all the values on this as well. Get rid of all these. And this is where it's going to be fun. This is the manure. We're going to rename these too, because they've never... This is the inner plane. We'll call this manure. And this one is the fertilizer. You don't have to rename them, but we've got a lot of stuff to do. So, indicator not necessary anymore. We do want these planes. What I'm going to do is create a transform group real quick down at the bottom. Cut that out. Put it into our mod at the bottom. And I'm going to duplicate it. So I have 2 of them. And one I'm going to name the manure mover. And the other one I'm going to name my fertilizer mover. And a mover is a moving plane. I'm going to take the manure one, cut it, and put it into this group here. And I'll tell you why I'm putting them into a folder. You'll notice it really soon here. Why we're putting these into a folder rather than leaving them out there on their own. But we can now get rid of the indicator that is not even necessary. It was just left behind because it's what the it's an invisible object that the other mod needed, but we don't need it anymore, so that's gone. But you can see we have our planes and they shifted a little bit, so we're gonna bring them back into the box here, make sure they're centered up, and actually let's bring this back to 0 because this is exactly why we did this. 0 on all of them. You want to move the actual group that it's in, and we'll show you why we do that very soon. Once we get this lined up relatively good inside the box, we want it to fill up. And make sure we're not sticking out the back. That's sticking, nope, alright. And put it down all the way to the bottom, which is right there, just below the surface. You can see it in there. And we're going to do the same thing with the fertilizer. First we make sure they're all at 0 on the inner plane, then we'll bring this one back in. And actually, if you really want to get technical, if we shift Control C and copy these 3 values, this one should be in the same place. Now I'm just going to do a quick test by bringing up this one and up that one so it covers it. Perfect. Undo, undo. Bring them right back down to 0. Now the reason why we do that, because we got to create movers out of these. And let's bring these over to explain what a mover is. Something that actually moves the object. We'll bring that barn back up. And do we have a mover? Yeah, we do. In here we have movers on all the troughs. So if I highlight underneath, you'll see this here. It is in a mover. And all the troughs move at the same time, but those are the fields we need for a mover. So back over to our other one right here, we'll bring that up. First you need your fill types, and we're doing it on this folder. The main folder is where we're going to actually keep at 0. So we're going to actually put the mover on the object itself in this case. That was moving all 3. We don't want to put it on the main folder, but we're going to put it on the object itself, and that is fill types, fill capital TYPES, and that's a string, and this one's for manure. So this is where it gets interesting because we're going to have 3 going into 1, and this UPK doesn't support it, but we're going to at least get it working with 1 right now, and we'll figure out a conversion process for later. So fill types, manure, we'll leave that. Now you got the 2 positions, low POSITION with a capital P, and that's a string. And we'll also add the HIGH, high position, and that's a string. So we got those 2, and then we know it's going to be a type. They're all strings here, and the type is a mover. So we'll put in the type mover. Alright, reason why we put those in the folders is because we changed this value. You can see the XYZ. It gets very confusing. But because we're putting this on the plane itself, we have all zeros. So we know the low position where it's set right now is at 0, 0, 0. So that's very simple, 0, 0, 0. The high position is going to be 0, whatever number fills it up. Right there looks good. So we'll copy the 2.455 and a 0. And then we can reset that back to 0. Same way with the other one, we're going to do the same thing on the fertilizer mover. So we're going to go over here, add fill types. Our high position. Our low POSITION. And our type. Alright, so fill types here is going to be fertilizer this time. because that's the plane we're moving. Our low position is 0, 0, 0. Our type is mover. And our high position can be actually copied right from this one here because they're the same. 0, 2.455, and 0. So we have the movers built into for fertilizer and manure, which is just wonderful. What else do we need to have? We've got our display trigger. We need a silo trigger, and this is where it gets a little bit different as well. On our barns, that is our station trigger, which is our tip trigger. Then we have our fill trigger. Our fill trigger is actually our silo trigger, so we're going to go up where it says silo trigger, edit, replace that with our fill trigger, replace. Did I replace the right one? Display trigger. Nope, I put a... Let's try that again. We don't want the fill trigger. Fill trigger, replace. Am I in the wrong box here? Silo trigger with fill trigger, replace. We want to replace the display trigger with fill trigger now because I replaced it. Okay. Now we need to, whoops, wrong button. We need to make this fill trigger much smaller and put it underneath the silo where we want to have the thing fill up. So let's see what a 0.2 point, the Y we want to keep about 1, and we'll bring it down to 0.2. Basically anywhere a vehicle hits this, it's going to fill. And we can actually go with 0.1, make it a little thinner. Right there's a box for filling. Positioning is always fun, but it doesn't have to be perfect here. You just, whenever a truck hits this, it is going to fill it with fertilizer. So we got to change the type, fill type to fertilizer, and it is a fill trigger. That is the type of trigger. And we can actually scale it up a little bit bigger just in case, bring it down. Doesn't matter if it goes underground a little bit, it's not even square, but it works. So we have our fill trigger, we have our display trigger, we have an interact icon which can stay there, our fertilizer manure, but we need a tip trigger which is right here. Now this is interesting because it has a, well, what do you call this? It's a move back timer, which you do not have on the, whatchamacallit, the, oh, I can't even remember. It's not in the UPK, but the move back timer is not there, so we're going to have to figure out something to do with this. And we do need to replace the tip trigger, and there's the plane. I want to keep the plane, so I'll put that in the bottom. So we have the plane, we'll bring it over and put it into a mover of some sort. And we need to add our tip trigger in place of this tip trigger. So we'll go up here, highlight this one, edit, replace it with the station trigger. And we now can get rid of all three of these because we have all trigger types on there. And here's our trigger. Now we're going to want to resize this to the front. Let's go 0.5, 0.5. Give them a lot of area to drive up and dump in. And for this, we're going to have accepted fill types of manure, liquid manure, and whoops, well, we gotta make liquid manure all one word, manure and compost. That's what we can dump there, and it is a tip trigger, and if you wanted to have the not accepted warning, which I leave it off, but you can show not accepted warning, click, and then if the product's not accepted there, it will pop up the warning. But we're going to leave that off, and that is a tip trigger. Now, we have a whole bunch of fun stuff here, but we need to create one more thing, and that is how to convert this. Now, this is the tricky part because we have 3 in and 1 out. So what I need to do is I need to create a new fill type that is going to be just using the UPK to convert all the products into it immediately. And that's the way we're going to get around this. So back up to the FERT master. Let's call the new product, and we'll make it hold 200,000, and we'll call it, let's see, anything will work, but we want to get it pretty unique. We'll just call it 200,000 holding for a holding tank. That works. And we want to go down here and make sure we add the holding value, whatever you want. You could do a count, you could name it whatever you want. But we need to have a holding tank where we're going to convert the 3 different products with processors into a product that's called holding, and then convert it back. Then it can take that product and convert it into the liquid manure. So it'll actually take all the 3 products, convert it into one that will convert. So when the holding tank is full, it's full. It's going to convert the holding right into the manure that we need to have. So what we want to do is the holding tank is going to be converted into fertilizer. So the manure mover, we're going to change the fill type to holding as well, so it moves on holding instead of manure. Whatever's in the holding tank will show manure. It's just going to move that mover up. Fertilizer's output, that can stay the same, and that is good. Now we need to have a processor. So a processor is basically another transform group, and we'll put one up here in the main mod. And with the animal barns, there's tons of processors. All these down here, lots of different things that go into the different processors for an animal barn. You can have very many multiples. There's even a cow death one here where a cow can die. But we're just going to take a basic one and look at that. Go back over to our other one here. Now, the processor is enable children if processing. We'll add these in anyway. Enable children if processing, and that is a Boolean field, and that basically is anything that's underneath the processor gets enabled when it's processing. Only whole products means only numbers of 1. We don't need that here. It's okay if you use a random number, no big deal. Product is a string, and that is the product we're creating, which is fertilizer. Okay. Production prerequisite is, do we need to have so much of an animal or whatever in here before it starts producing? And we're going to leave that off. Production probability is the chance that it will produce, and we don't need that here either. But products per hour we don't want. We're going to do a products per minute, which you also could do products per second. But I recommend on certain, decide what your piece that you're creating is, and we're almost out of time already. See what you're creating and how often it really should be updating. and use, I mean, you could do it an hour, but minute for fertilizer seems good. Second is a little bit much, and the more it's processing, the more taxing on your system. So we're going to do the products per minute real quick. Whoops, spell it right. And we'll go in and we'll make that a float. It's the number. We're going to do all our products per minute is a float. And then our recipe is very important. RECIPE. And we'll make that a string. Now the recipe is what's going to take to make a fertilizer. We are going to use one holding. We need to make another processors that convert everything else into the holding group that we created. This is going to be a type is a string. It's a processor. Yeah, remind you. You can talk during class. It's okay. I am not really paying much attention to what's going on over there because it's keeping my mind in this is a tough thing to do sometimes. See, type. We put this up here. Processor. All right. So we are going to create one holding products per minute. Let's see. How fast do we want to create it? Let's say we're making 200. Well,
Jeff entered channel.
Hey man, I think your audio is muted. I don't hear you coming through, just to let you know.
how far back did that go? Anyway, if you're missing, I don't know. I hit that darn slash key, and that's my mute button. But sorry about that. I don't know how long it was, but you didn't need to listen to me as long as you're watching. But anyway, we're making processors, converting it into the holding. Product is holding, recipe manure, type processor, and we're going to add products per second. Whoops, wrong field. Products per... Problem with having hotkeys to mute your stream. That's a float.
It's probably about 5 minutes, 10 max.
All right, well, if they were watching, they can watch back
Jeff
and get the
moved
muted
to
part.
farming channel.
We should be good now. We're going to want to convert our products pretty instantly, so we'll do it at 10,000 a second for the manure processor. Same way with the liquid. And actually, you know what I should have done is copied the one here. It'll be quicker. We're going to have a liquid manure processor and a compost processor. And all three of these are going to convert into holding tank. This one with liquid manure. 10,000 a second. And this one with one compost equals 1. So there we go. 1 compost equals 1 holding. 1 liquid manure equals a holding. 1 manure equals a holding. 1 holding equals a fertilizer. So all of our little things are in there. That is done. The only thing we have left is this little plane here, which I haven't really decided how to do it. I don't even think it's necessary and we're running out of time. But you could put it on a manure and just show it filled. It has a nice grate there. I'm going to get rid of that because we're running out of time for now. And there is no move back trigger. So we have the dumping spot. We can get rid of that extra transform group. Everything is in the Fert Master that we need. The movers, the fertilizer, everything except for the particle effects, which we'll work on trying to find a way to get a particle effect. It hasn't been done yet, but we're going to work on that. For next class, we're going to save this right now. And back to our Fert Master. Under our mod description file, with all of the UPK stuff, you need to register it as a placeable. So we're going to bring over this register Lua that we struck out earlier. And here we have these here. We're going to remove. Register placeable type. And we're going to call this... Well, actually, it has to be called exactly what it is in here, which is placeable type UPK. We're going to rename it Fert Master. So in our register Lua, we're going to call it our UPK Fert Master. And that registers it for the UPK. We need to go into the mod description XML file and turn that line back on. Source file, register.lua. It's all there. That will register it for the UPK. Save that. And the only other thing you need to have is, with this, is the 110N section. You need to have any in-game type of crop or whatever listed in here that isn't in-game, one of the standards, in the 110N or I10, excuse me. I'll eventually get used to that. And the only one I could think of that isn't actually part of the starting game is compost. So we'll put compost in here. And not Schwein. And there's a lot of languages that are all going to be saying compost. And we'll save that. And with all luck, because short on time, we're going to zip everything up. Add to archive, zip. Grab our Fert Master and dump it in here and load up the game. Fire Shooter 10, thanks for the follow, and anybody that I missed. I get involved when I'm trying to get through some of these, and this was a pretty long one, but I can't believe we actually got this far. We'll finish it up, see if we can find a way to get particle effects on it. I'm not sure yet. But we'll finish this one up on Tuesday with anything else we need. I-10, L10. It's the freaking 10 section. Whatever the 10s. We'll just call it the 10s. L10. They need to clarify. What does it stand for? Anybody knows? That would help. Maybe it doesn't stand for anything. You'll never see this on console. Unfortunately. Let's jump up here, grab hopefully a placeable fertilizer master. Stick it right here. It's still working. Let's check my log file. I placed it. There's no errors. That's always a plus. We can scroll up. Nothing. All right. Looks like everything's good. And I don't know if we actually have time to test it right now, but let me jump out of a vehicle, find out where I am. Go over to our fertilizer master, and the quick check would be to come on over and see what we have over here. You can see we have 0 fertilizer, 0 manure, 0 liquid manure, and 0 compost. So what I need to do, which unfortunately I don't have any of those on the map right now, so testing it is a little bit more tricky. What we'll do is we'll see if we can get this up on the server for
disconnected
the next episode and fill it up. And then we'll show you there at 9 o'clock. I'll put this up on the server while we're down. We'll give it a test over there and see if it's working. So come on back at 9 o'clock, and then we'll finish up working on this thing on Tuesday. So 9 o'clock, we have our preview. We'll even get to see if this actually works. And thanks everybody for watching. Who knows, we might come back a little bit early. It's hard to say at this point, but we'll be back up in about an hour at least. No later.